this video is a Twitch stream that was not edited, so it's going to look like a Twitch stream. Welcome to my vision of World of Warcraft Classic Plus. The design direction of my vision of the game, of my vision of Classic Plus, is substantially different from that of retail, circa Shadowlands, as well as being different from the private servers, Vanilla Plus and Turtle WoW. This is partially because it's aims to fix Vanilla WoW's many problems first, flesh it out and polish it second, and add new content third, and it does not intend to add a fuck ton of power creep. Or any power creep at all, in fact. This is going to be part of a playlist of videos. I'm going to get around to making these other videos, which I plan to do in the near future. Check this video's description for a link to the playlist when it exists. The document displayed is my vision of World of Warcraft Classic Plus. It has over 10,000 lines of text, and the document's version number is 1.5.15. All versions of the document are based upon patch 1.12.2 of World of Warcraft. If you just want to know about the general design direction of my Classic Plus vision, then just, watch this video, or view the document yourself and look at the list of major features. The link to the document is in my channel's About page. And on to the actual text of the introduction. As you skipped, I already said that this document is a work in progress. It ain't done yet. Already said this Classic Plus, of course, is intended to take place on servers that are completely different from the Blizzard servers. What makes this document worth writing is not that it merely say what kinds of changes would need to be made to the game and why, but it already said provide specifications about how to make it actually work, that is, how to actually execute the changes. Barring programming, that I don't know. I know jack shit about programming. Well, actually, I know a tiny bit about programming, only a tiny bit. For example, I do not simply say, quotation mark, the troll's regeneration rate will be buffed, quotation mark. I say, quotation mark, the regeneration rate will have its description and functions changed as follows. Restores 1 to 300 of your maximum hit points every 2 seconds, unless you're on fire. It'll restore a minimum of 1 hit points per 2 seconds, acting as old health per 5, but it'll skip the ticks during which you have a dot on you that deals fire damage, or you're standing in a persistent area of effect fire damage, a la Flame Strike, or a bonfire. The bit about fire is mandated by the in-game book, Arathor and the Troll Wars, which exists in the patch 1.12.2 as an in-game object. This will give regeneration enough of a buff, not be negligible. Yeah, that's there. I don't get it. Yeah, they'll not be negligible like it was in Vanilla. That's 5% of your maximum hit points healed every 30 seconds. I forgot that this part of this wasn't actually part of that one change, so that's like the other setter. Anyway, then you just unpack on that. So that said, this document goes to great lengths to describe what I want to see get done and to create WoW Classic Plus, including getting every single tameable beast in the entire game their own unique secondary stat bonuses, in addition to their pre-existing primary stat bonuses and penalties, as well as defining the level requirements, training sources, mana costs, cast times, ranges, spell schools, and effects of each rank of the new class abilities and pet abilities, creating my own optimization formulae, and much, much more. I can skip the part about the target audience. The list of major features. Well, I can skip it for the video, but not for the actual document. The list of major features. As I said, all servers will be completely and utterly separate from Classic, not Plus, as well as being separate from resale. It's just worth mentioning there, it's not actually a major feature. All dungeons harder than the Sunken Temple will be turned into 10 or 20-man raids, except as for Blackrock Depths in particular. Half will be a low 50s 5-man dungeon as before, while the rest will be a level 58 to 60 10-man raid. And the parts that are a 10-man raid will be behind the Shadowforge lock. Will be the parts behind the Shadowforge lock. So, however, these 10 and 20-man raids will be given no reset timer, so you may pug them to your heart's content. Just like Upper Blackrock Spire. In Vanilla. Zolgrub and AT-20 will be turned to 40-man raids, and all 40-man raids, including those two, will be of the same high difficulty. All 40-man raids will expect every raider to exercise full consumable usage, including flasks, and to use a portable world buff, but not a non-portable world buff. However, in order to save players from themselves, all characters will be limited to doing 2 40-man raids per week, not counting the next is there. Now, before I get into world buffs, I will point out that this is a, well, a particularly contentious feature because instead of just eternally running around in a hamster wheel, you're eventually going to get the carrot on a stick. And some people would think that that's bad. For reasons that I'd actually have to write out the script for that part. So I'm just going to skip it because I forgot to write the script for that part. GDKP pugs, but not GDKP guilds, will be gone forever because 40-man raid pugs will be rendered impossible by the game mechanics themselves. Basically, you have to be in the same guild for 2 weeks without weaseling your way around it before you're allowed to enter a 40-man raid in the first place, and all raid IDs are tied to the guild that you're in. Do note that you will still be able to test the recruits in 10 and 20-man raids before taking them to 40-mans. All items of an item level over 65 will be nerfed to have an item level at 65, or in a few cases 63. And most items, including those, will otherwise be re-itemized. As such, the raid or die design philosophy will not be embodied by this game, and player versus player fights will last for more than a few seconds when all combatants are 60s in best in slot forever gear full consumable usage. This also means that all endgame content will be available from day one, except for the content locked behind server-wide events such as the AQ event, which will be available on day one or shortly afterwards. Shortly afterwards only because I want the event to happen in a chronological order. This also means that you'll never have to worry about your best in slot forever gear being replaced, and it also means that epic items can afford to actually be epic like in the old days, and on a related note, legendary items will actually be legendary, also like in the old days. Elite mobs will be much stronger than before after low levels, because learning curves. As such, mid-level and high-level dungeons will be hard enough that people generally use marks, kill orders, and crowd control, like in the old days. Now that I recall, it's not just because of the learning curves, because of the after low levels part, it's also because players just don't have as many abilities at low levels, and because spell cleaving and melee cleaving are not such a big issues at the really low levels, because they don't have whichever abilities yet, such as, I don't want to think of any examples right now. The melee cleave and spell cleave metagames will not exist in this version of Classic Plus, in this vision of Classic Plus, I thought that said version, without changing how any spec of any class plays outside of large-scale area of effect stuff as a result of the relevant changes. These associated changes will also cause large-scale PvP to not simply be an AoE Zergfest. I feel like it's briefly explaining how this works. So basically, you know how Thunderclap only affects up to 4 targets per use, and War Stomp only affects up to 5 targets per use, and Whirlwind only affects up to 4 targets per use? Well, every single ability that players get access to, and buff, and item that damages in an area of effect, or crowd controls in an area of effect, with a few exceptions such as Consecration, they'll have a hard target cap of 6 targets per tick or spell cast. Hard cap. So if you try to Frost Nova 30 guys at once, it's only going to hit 6 of them, and the other 24 guys are still going to be trying to kill you. You're not going to see 24 resists pop up over their heads. You're just not going to affect them at all. Not even going to attempt to. And then if one of those 6 guys that actually hit effects get resisted, then that's going to be 25 guys coming in that instead of 24. So anyway, moving on. Some new places will be added to the game, such as Olum, the Ghostlands, Tarzan Crypts, and the Emerald Nightmare. Let's not succumb to Freechy Creep, however, there's only going to be so many new places. Black Lotus will spawn like arcane crystals do. As such, all Black Lotus will be removed from the game, and Black Lotus will instead spawn randomly on Mounted Silver Sage, Ice Cap, and Plague Blue nodes. No, those do not exist in Tyrmal East. Nor will they. All buff tyrants will tick down while you're logged out, as if you're logged in the entire time. This will enable you to play your character outside of raids while you have world buffs without worrying about the world buffs wearing off. Instead, you're going to have to worry about when the raid starts, and getting the world buffs right before the raid. However, because world buffs are immensely changed, the only world buff you really have to worry about is the one Type A world buff that you're allowed to get. More on that in a different video. All world buffs were massively nerfed, causing them to not trivialize the game. In-game economic inflation will be dramatically curtailed, if not stopped from occurring outright. Gold will start out valuable, and it will remain valuable for the entire natural lifespan of its server. Do note, however, that theme park MMORPGs generally have a limited lifespan anyway if they don't get a constant stream of content that never ends. As such, the type of income that is not competitive got some huge nerfs, and many large endgame gold sinks were added to the game, which are required to get the best enchants and to craft flasks, and some less significant gold sinks are added to the game as well. The old broken life-ruining PvP ranking system will be replaced with a new one that ain't arenas, is not arenas at all, and will reward you based on your skill. This new system will basically be rated battlegrounds, except how many ranking points you get or lose for winning or losing will be greatly modified by how many of the objectives that you completed in the rated battleground. So, I'll just leave the S out. An example of such an objective being capturing the mines in Alterac Valley. Whether or not you capture mines in Alterac Valley will affect how many ranking points your team gets, whether you win, if you win, and how many points your team loses if you lose. As an example. However, in order to prevent many exploits from occurring that would trivialize the meaning of having a high PvP rank, cross-realm battlegrounds will unfortunately have to exist in the game, because otherwise it's going to be a lot easier to do shit like win trading, and fuck that. Because a lot of Twinks hate it so much when they have non-Twinks on our teams, Twinks will be separated from non-Twinks in all battlegrounds by an experience blocking NPC. Admittedly, I was hesitant to do that change in particular, but it's just going to have to work out that way, I guess, after I thought about it more. Because a lot of people hate it when people at or near the bottom of a battleground level bracket K up for a battleground, non-Twink battlegrounds will be split into brackets of 5 levels, not counting the level 60 bracket. So, for example, instead of a level 50 to 59 bracket, there's going to be a level 50 to 54 bracket and 55 to 59 bracket. 50, 51, 50, 54, 55, 56, 59. I'm not looking at the actual numbers right now. I'm just going off the top of my head. Because some people hate leveling and love PvP, all players will get a tiny amount of experience points from killing other players. Very tiny amount of experience points. And systems will be put into place so that people who hate killing non-player characters, outside of Alterac Valley, will barely have to go out into the world to level their way up to 60. Unlike in retail, which is, or was, infested with people doing battlegrounds for experience, people will not be doing that in this game because it will be a very, very slow way to level up. Mind you, I have not ever played retail ever since shortly before the Ruby Sanctum came out. Ever. That was the last raid released in Wrath of the Lich King, right after Icecrown Citadel. I think it was called the Ruby Sanctum. Yeah. Not even once have I logged into retail or bought an expansion pack since late Wrath. Dishonorable kills will be hard to accidentally get. Civilians will be immune to area of effect damage outright, even while aggroed. That is, NPCs that are marked as civilians by the game. Many more options will be added for ranked-based PvP rewards. So you're not just going to get an epic, helm, shoulders, chest, pants, boots, and weapon. But you're also going to get epic rings, epic trinkets, bracers, you got gloves anyway, belts, and whatever else I'm missing. Everything except shirts and sabards from PvP ranks. Except you're also going to get an epic sabard if I recall correctly. But not a shirt. So yeah, PvP-based rank rewards will really be comparable to raid gear. To the best raid gear. And overall that is. And not just for the equipment slots that they occupy, because it'll occupy all of them. Again, except shirts. Alterac Valley will be revamped as becoming Old Alterac Valley, that is, patch 1.5 Alterac Valley, except it'll be a 1 versus 1 fight, with the Winterax tribe as the third faction, controlled by non-player characters, exclusively. Any faction that wants to win Alterac Valley must defeat both enemy generals in order to win the game, and the Winterax tribe can potentially beat both the Alliance and the Horde in the same instance of Alterac Valley, causing both the Alliance and the Horde to lose. Negative PvP ranks will be added to PvP and RP PvP servers, but not the other servers. Players of rank -3, that is, Outlaw, can be outright criminals who can attack or be attacked by anybody, anywhere, at any time, regardless of their factional affiliations, and outlaws are always outlaw flagged. But if you got any furthermore, if you got any dishonorable kills last week as a ranked -3 player, then non-player characters will put bounties on your head, and level 60 NPCs will randomly spawn near you to collect the bounty based on how many dishonorable kills you got last week. Nearly all players outside of role-playing PvP servers will not care about the bounty rewards, however, because these are not rewards that actually make your character better or anything, or richer. It's booze. It's literally just booze. Which is definitely a motivator if you're a role player. Most role players. Real role players. Except some particular characters, I guess, would be guys that don't consume alcohol. Or characters that don't consume alcohol. Anyway, yeah. So players are not going to exploit the bounty system to get rewards. The Alliance will get to play as High Elves, and the Horde will get to play as Stone Mall Ogres. However, some bit of retconning had to occur to make these things be possible. Every single town tree that was not already good for raiding will be redesigned to be good for both raiding and PvP, as its obvious primary role, which usually is not healing, with at least 31 town points are appropriately invested into that town tree. All damage effects that had boring damage rotations will have their rotations be changed to be less boring in raids. Melee hunters will be made into a real thing by turning the survival town tree from a ranged town tree with a bit of melee into a melee plus ranged town tree that prefers melee, though not by much. Paladins, druids, and even shamans will, in their tank specs, be capable of being competitively capable main tanks in 40-man raids. In fact, all of them, barring factional restrictions, will be required as main tanks to be every 40-man raid. Every raid is going to require A, 2 prot warriors, B, 1 bear druid, and C, 1 prot paladin or tank enhanced shaman, as opposed to the damage enhanced shaman. Not necessarily the damage enhanced shaman, but you need a tank enhanced shaman if you're Horde. Number 26. Every family of Hunter Pit will have a special ability that is not bad, and nearly all such abilities will be exclusive or non-exclusive to that pet family. Faction imbalance will be less bad than it was in WoW Classic Not Plus, both the population-based kind and the other kind, Alliance power per player versus Horde power per player. Latin American and Brazilian servers, and other foreign servers, will exist on day 1, rather than being made when it is too late to matter, as was the case for WoW Classic Not Plus in 2019 for Latin American and Brazilian servers. However, Chinese servers will not exist at all unless their government substantially loosens their grip upon video games as a whole, as if that'll ever happen under non-supernatural circumstances. All players will not be allowed to multi-box on most servers. A heavily modified version of the Burning Crusade's jewel crafting will be added to the game as a new primary profession. Among other features, jewels and sockets will actually exist for items that are at and below level 60. All the way down to somewhere below level 10, I forget exactly where below level 10, but there will not be any colored sockets, socket bonuses, or special jewels. Engineering got nerfs, but it's still good. And all the other primary professions got big buffs to be as non-financially good as engineering is when you can get someone else to craft everything for you for free on the spot. The stuff that ruined retail World of Warcraft over the years will not be added to this WoW Classic Plus. Such things that will not be in this game include Titan Forging, LFD, and Garrisons, among so many other things. See section number 10 for the full list. Section number 10 of this design document, the list of things to keep out of this game. Many buff and debuff debuff and debuff limits will be increased to a combined total, shared total of 255. Many changes were made to how buffs stack. This will make it take longer for tryhards to get burnt out on this game and make it easier on casuals. Dungeon/raid boosting will be gone for good via game mechanics. You know, I just remembered like a few minutes ago that... Never mind, I'll keep going. No, actually, I'll mention it now. I do not actually have what it takes to make a private server out of this, nor am I collaborating with anybody to do so. This is all just pure design so far. I'm gonna edit the introductory script. That, and I don't have a team of people, or however, called working with me to make an actual private server out of this. This is all pure design thus far. Save video scripts.txt. Okay, now where was I? Many changes were made to how buffs stack. This will make it take longer for tryhards to get burnt out in this game and make it easier on casuals. Dungeon/raid boosting will be gone for good via game mechanics. Melee leeway and spell leeway will be removed from the game. This does not refer to the leeway from beginning in a non-instantaneous spell cast and then having the enemy step slightly out of range before you finish casting a spell. That kind of spell leeway will remain in the game. It's the other kind of spell leeway I'm getting rid of. Spell batching will occur every 20th of a second instead of every 0.4 seconds. I forget which fraction. 2/5 of a second. Much of this game's lore has been cleaned up, and I'll eventually clean up even more of it. For example, the word hoodoo has been globally replaced with voodoo, warlocks use spell fire instead of regular fire, the priest's shadow talent tree and spell school were renamed to void, and many non-player characters were changed in order to satisfy the pre-Burning Crusade lore better than Blizzard Entertainment did. And a particularly contentious change that might not even legally work out. Gold selling and other such illicit financial transactions will be dramatically less profitable than they are in all other versions of World of Warcraft, if at all profitable. However, one of the reasons why this will be are legally questionable. Basically, if a game master catches you hacking or selling gold or something like that, but not doing something political, you can be charged an arbitrary amount of money on your payment method, 4 months worth of sub money minimum, and that payment method must be a debit card or direct connection to a checking account that has enough spare money to be charged for such an offense. As such, should all anti-gold selling changes described in this document be implemented into the actual game, then there might actually not be any gold sellers and such to worry about, nor their associated botters. Now then, the glossary. This glossary is intended to aid people who are already familiar with the terms used to describe things from pre-Cataclysm official releases of World of Warcraft, and with the terms used to describe the names of WoW later expansion packs. As such, very many phrases such as AH, Twink, ILVL, GDKP, and BFA, which I'm only referring to as such with my mouth because I'm referring to the acronyms as the acronyms, and not as what they mean. Those things are going to be left out of this glossary on purpose because the people reading this are expected to already know what those terms mean. However, some of these terms will be mentioned anyway to dispel any ambiguity about their meaning in relation to this document. This subsection was recently added as an afterthought, so it is presumed to be incomplete. Quotation mark, all stats, quotation mark. That means strength, agility, stamina, intellect, and spirit. Some parts of this document will instead refer to just as stats, depending on the context, an example being debilitated potions. Armor class means whether or not something is cloth, leather, mail, or plate armor. Big map, I can skip that part. Binary spell, actually, you should already know what that is. I'm just going to slowly scroll through this glossary because I don't feel like actually saying all this stuff in my mouth. You can pause the video if you need to. I should probably put my stream manager up. Hold on. I am recording this, right? Okay, good. Again, Type A world buffs means world buffs are not portable. Although I neglected to mention that it excludes War Chief's Blessing. All the other world buffs are Type B world buffs, which includes War Chief's Blessing by special exception. Okay, now then, some words about game design. I'm just going to mention that I'm just going to say mouth out this part. Some parts of this design document may seem to be very, very heavy-handed in their implementation, but I assure you that it is very necessary. This is because history has proven that when it comes to WoW players, hyperbole is reality, grasping at straws can legitimately get you ahead of other players, and there's basically no lengths to which the more competitive parts of the player base, so a two-digit percentage of all players, will not go through to get an advantage over other players, illegitimate or not. These are the same kinds of people who DDoS each other in PvP during Cataclysm and Mists of Pandaria, and these are the same kinds of people who normalize the stacking of world buffs and consumables, including even flasks, in all 20 and 40 man raids available in Classic Not Plus, to the point that everyone in most raiding guilds were expected to do it, lest he greatly inconvenience everyone else at the least. And there's so much other hyperbolically crazy stuff in the WoW player base that's done. You just have to be heavy-handed in your implementation of game mechanics. Because if you don't, they're going to exploit them. After all, that is the community that coined its term, the motto, or however the hell, the phrase, exploit early, exploit often. They're the people who coined exploit early, exploit often. So these people, yeah. So these are the major steps before completion. First, I make changes to the design document to see fit until I feel like I'm ready for the second step. Then I'll re-itemize selected against items it's seen in sections numbers 3.0.5, sweeping itemization changes, and 3.0.6, itemization methodology. Then I'm going to solidify all other changes that have to do with rating, not including the specifics of all the stats of every raid NPC. Then I'll figure out each spec's pre-raid best in slot and best in slot forever gear, their raid damage per second, where applicable, and their raid tanking capabilities, and such order raid healing capabilities. This does not involve completely fleshing out every single raid mob or raid boss, and so you should only have to flesh out a few raid bosses and trash mobs to figure out this part. This will actually involve spreadsheets, since I'll finally have concrete numbers to work with by then, because, again, itemization, so I might need to get someone's help with this, since I'm nowhere near that good at Excel. I ain't no Excel wizard, I know only the bare basics about Excel, the really bare basics. After that, I'm going to fine-tune class balance around rating without messing up leveling as necessary and completely solidify all classes' profession changes. Do note that the class changes thus far are based upon estimated amounts of stats, seeing as how most items in the game are yet to be re-itemized. Have yet to be re-itemized. Then I'm going to find a guide on how to do PvP balance, specifically in rated battlegrounds and pre-made battlegrounds, to tell me what needs to be accomplished to be PvP balanced, and then I'm going to change the game to have good PvP balance without making a great balance for leveling, because then I'll know what kind of stuff needs to be done as opposed to specifics. I can figure out these specifics if I'm given a good direction to work with. The other guy would provide me the direction, and I would execute the direction. Player versus player combat will be mostly balanced around rated battlegrounds. After that, I'm going to solidify all other changes except for non-player character stats that have not been specified. Then I'll create long YouTube videos. Well, I guess I'm doing that part now, but I guess I'm going to do it again later. Then I'm going to maintain this design document while I attempt to amass enough YouTube stuff to buy the entire fucking Warcraft and intellectual property from Blizzard. As if that's never going to happen, but if you got a better idea for that stuff, then just let me know. Then I'm going to finish the unspecified NPC stats. Now, you might be just thinking, hey, just make a private server for it. But, well, because of the way that the PvP ranking system works, there needs to be a lot of players, or else there's going to be a whole lot of win trading and shit like that. Because people are going to be able to relatively reliably come into contact with the same players that they've already came into contact with on the opposing faction. And they are going to be able to coordinate things with them through Discord. Because there's not going to be a matchmaking system that randomly prevents them, almost all the time, from matching each other again. I could skip the disclaimer to the introduction. The table of contents. This is a really fucking big table of contents. Section number 1, introduction major features to the table of contents. Section 2, dungeons and raids. Section 3, items. Section 4, world. Section 5, PvP. Section 5.1, new PvP ranking system. Section 5.2, negative PvP ranks. Section 6, races. Section 7, general class changes. 7.1, hunters. 7.1a, hunter pets. 7.2, mages. 7.3, warriors. 7.4, rogues. 7.5, priests. 7.6, warlocks. 7.7, shamans. 7.8, paladins. 7.9, druids. Section 8, servers. Section 9, professions in general. Section 9.1, alchemy. Section 9.2, blacksmithing. Section 9.3, cooking. Section 9.4, enchanting. Section 9.5, engineering. Section 9.6, first aid. Section 9.7, fishing. Section 9.8, herbalism. Section 9.9, jewel crafting. Section 9.10, leatherworking. Section 9.11, lockpicking. Section 9.12, mining. Section 9.13, pickpocketing. Section number 9.14, poisons to profession. That is, the secondary rogue profession called poisons. Section 9.15, skinning. Section 9.16, tailoring. Section 9.17, practice army. Now a secondary profession instead of a hunter skill, instead of a rogue skill. Excuse me. Section number 9.18, trapping. Now a secondary profession instead of a hunter skill. And section number 10, list of things to keep out of the game. And then section number 11, other. And then there come the changes from the previous version. This is what I got so far. Made limited. For section number 5.16, I got, for version number 5.16 in the document, the next version, I so far have remembering to make limited use for character items no longer invoke random profession cooldown when used, but no longer be usable in instances, including battlegrounds, and remembering to make permanent death servers disallow players from trading, using the mail, and auctioning items. And then there's the end of the document. So yeah, that's the video. Thanks for watching.